Hello and welcome back to another Python video with me. In today's lesson, as expected, we are going to be talking about how we can get input from the user and how we can actually interact with the computer or the user. What are we waiting for? What does input in Python mean? Python user input from the keyboard can be read using the input built-in function. The input from the user is read as a string and can be assigned to a variable. After entering the value from the keyboard, we have to press the enter button. Then the input function reads the value entered by the user, which in this case will be you. Let's use an example to demonstrate what I mean. Let's make a new file and save it as second class in your specific folder that you used as last time. Let's go ahead, bring up our pop-up window, and save it as second class. Perfect. After you have completed, I would like you to choose any sport you prefer or like. Once you have finished, type it into our program. This is going to be our variable to store the input statement. After that, we are going to put an equal symbol to make sure that our variable is equal to our input statement. Have you chose your sport? Perfect. Me too. Mine is going to be basketball. This is my favorite sport. And we're going to put our equal symbol to make sure it is going to be equal to our input statement. Now, in the previous video, we did a challenge with variables. For example, remember name was equal to Bob? Well, in this case, I would like you to go ahead and type input followed by 2 parentheses and 2 quotation marks inside the parentheses. Like this. Inside the input statement, ask a question which you would normally ask your friends. Type in, what is your favorite sport? Let's go ahead and type in our favorite sport. We already have a variable name, basketball, and we're going to ask the user, what is your favorite sport? And remember to put a space after that so the user has enough space to type in, rather than it's not connected to what is your favorite sport. There, we have created our input statement. But wait, before we run it, we have to print whatever the user types in. Hopefully from the previous video, you remembered we have to use a print statement. So we are going to enter a second line and we are going to type in print 2 brackets. Print and 2 brackets. Inside these brackets, we are going to put our variable name. Do you notice something unusual? We are now using quotation marks. This is because we are printing out a variable. The variable name you assigned your input statement. So let's go ahead and use basketball. Finally, let's test this out. Let's go ahead and save our program and run it. What is your favorite sport? My favorite sport is basketball. Wow, so it printed out basketball. Did it work? If not, rewatch the video carefully because next we are going to do a challenge. Challenge time! For this challenge, I would like you to make an input statement where you ask the user their name. Then I would like you to print a sentence saying, I love coding too, and the username which you had previously entered when you asked the question. Are you ready? Wow, you finished the challenge. So have I. Let's compare what we both did to improve. First things first, let's make a new file. Bring our pop-up window and save it as challenge 2 in our specific folder, just like we did for challenge 1. Except we're going to make it challenge 3. And the very first thing we're going to do is make our variable name. And I'm going to assign this variable the name. And this is going to be named because it's the most relevant to the question we're asking. We're not going to name it apples. It doesn't have any relevancy to the question we're posing. So let's make our input statement, our 2 brackets, and inside these brackets are quotation marks. Inside these quotation marks, I want to ask, what is your name? Giving a semicolon or either a question mark with a space. Or you can put plenty of spaces to make sure that the user has enough space. After that, we have completed our full input statement. There's nothing we have to do about it now unless we have to call a variable, which we are going to do. So we're going to go ahead, use our print statement. We're going to have our brackets, our quotation marks, and inside these quotation marks, we want to say, I love coding 2, and we're going to put a space so we make sure that the name or whatever the user entered is not connected to I love coding 2. Actually, let's make that I in uppercase. And then we're going to make I love coding 2, and outside the question mark, because we have to add our variable name, remember, just like in the previous video, we have to add, and we're going to type in name. Since we don't have to put any quotation marks around it because it's already a string. If we were making a number, in case you were wondering, we would just simply put right here int. Int is calling the integer, and integer allows you to enter a number as rather opposed to a string. So let's go ahead and actually remove that, because we're not entering a number, we're entering a string. So if your code looks similar to this, or maybe even the same, then you did perfect. Otherwise, let's break it down again. We made our variable name, and we made our input statement, and inside the input statement we asked, what is your name? And then after that, we printed out, I love coding 2 plus name. Let's quickly see and try if this works. Let's save it and run it. I'm just going to bring my pop-up window over, and it asks, what is your name? Let's use a pretend name. I'm going to use the name Rishi. I love coding 2, Rishi. Wow, that's great. Without even us typing in the code Rishi, it took whatever the user selection was and actually printed it out. That's fantastic. I have a second challenge upcoming. Are you ready? Wait, I almost forgot. Before the second challenge, we are going to learn about operators and what we can do with them to ameliorate our code. We can add and subtract, multiply, and divide. I will show a quick example. Take any number, for instance 2 plus 2, and it returns the number back 4. We can also do 2 times 6, and there we go, 12. We can do a lot. This even follows the rules of BEDMAS. I want you to do a challenge where you can get the age of a user and calculate the year they were born and print it back on the screen. If you are not able to do this challenge, it is completely okay. I have made it harder for you in general. Great! Have you finished? Time to compare. Over here is a code that I have written. I have saved it as challenge 4 in my folder. Now let's break it down and compare. Maybe you have the exact same code, if not similar. So let's break it down. Age is the variable which we have assigned to our input statement. Notice how there is this random int? Well, it's not completely random. It has a meaning. Integer. INT stands for integer. Remember previously how I had said if it's not a string, then we don't put this. Since with the user is entering a number, we have to put int. After that, we make a variable called year born. Year born is relevant to whatever we are trying to code. So year born is equal to 2020. Now, notice how it's not in quotation marks, and in the print statement we have to put string. That's because it's an integer. Next, we have the variable year born again, and we're subtracting it from whatever the user enters. So 2020 minus my age, which is 13, we get 2007. So last but not least, we are making a print statement. And in quotation marks, we print you are born in plus string year born. Let's quickly remove this S. We don't want any errors. So print you were born in string year born. Let's go ahead and save this and run it. So let me bring over my pop-up window. And how old are you? I am 13 years old. Enter the how old you ever are. So 13, you were born in 2007. Wow, this was able to calculate the year I was born without me even telling it. That's superb. Wow, wasn't that fun? Those two challenges were pretty hard. Anyways, today's video has sadly ended. But remember, you can always check out this video again. Next lesson is going to cover if statements. Sounds fun. Have a great summer and don't forget to like and subscribe.